Let me tell you the story of the Delplane Creeper. Let's go back 3 years to the fall semester of 2009, when I was in my freshman year of college. The beginning of the year was buzzing with freshman excitement. Everyone was meeting and making friends quickly. As I formed a tight circle of friends on my floor, which was the top floor, we would hang out in the floor lounge together and begin to notice someone peculiar. Every once in a while, someone would see a lone dude hanging around our lounge, the elevators right outside the lounge, the stairwell, and the bathroom. He always had his cell phone out, seemingly reading and sending texts, never talking to anyone, and rarely taking his nose out of his phone. We were a little sketched out by his behavior, but didn't think too much of it. While most of my floor was close, there were still some girls that we didn't know who we figured he might be seeing. After seeing him for the first time while I was sitting in the lounge, I tried to approach him. I was the floor president and figured I should at least say hi, but mostly wanted to try to figure out an explanation for the weird behavior. But as soon as I walked into the hallway, the guy had disappeared without a trace. A few more weeks passed, and the first incident occurred. A member of our group was taking a shower in the communal dorm bathroom. When he finished and reached for his towel and clothes, he found that they were gone. Halfway through fashioning the shower curtain into a toga, he saw the creeper in the bathroom, holding his towel and clothes. The conversation went as follows. The creeper said, "Are these yours?" Then presents clothes and towel. At the time, my friend was too bewildered to fully register the situation, which dawned on him later when he asked himself, what was he doing with my towel? Another week passed, and our first floor meeting was held. The incident was brought up, and now everyone on the floor knew about this man. It was at this time that my interest in the creeper turned from curious to wary. Time moved on, and for a few weeks, things were quiet until one morning I woke up to a hurried knock on my door, which is next door to the bathroom. I opened it to find another floor mate soaking wet, pale white, and shaking. He proceeded to tell me that as he was showering, he turned to find the creeper peeking over the shower curtain, staring down at him before fleeing. Immediately, I had DPS called while I put out calls to any able-bodied guy on the floor to flush this guy out. I had teams rushing down the stairwells SWAT style, clearing bathrooms on each floor, until campus security arrived. I worked with DPS to try to catch the guy, as they were short on staff and needed the back exit. They did a formal sweep of the building, and he was nowhere to be found. Me, victim 1 and 2, and a few other friends were now in the main lobby talking with DPS, filling them in on the situation. As we were chatting, a male dorm resident from a lower floor came up and asked if this was about the creeper guy. He said, "The dude did the same thing to me." More and more students came from all different floors, all with the same story, all of them male. This was the first time that we realized the problem was not localized to the top floor, but the same for the other floors. Now we were united and pissed. Both guys and girls were legitimately terrified to shower, afraid to walk the halls at night, and some too scared to be in their dorm room with the door unlocked. As for me, I was in full-on hunt mode. My floor was like my family, and I was going to protect them. I wasted no time after the last incident to begin my investigation. One of the first things I did was to immediately organize a reconnaissance network of dorm residents, reporting anything slightly out of the ordinary immediately and directly to me. Through questioning victims and witnesses, I started to piece together the creeper's methods. My dorm building had several exits, but only one entrance. That entrance required a key card to open that only dorm residents had. On top of that, after 6 p.m., anyone entering the building was required to show their student ID card, marked with a colored sticker to designate the residence hall and sign in all guests. The creeper had 2 methods of getting around this. The first involved a freshman resident that he had made acquaintances with early on in the semester during that make friends with everyone period. The freshman would call this guy and get him to open the front door for him. The friend barely knew him at all and was just being nice to someone he assumed had other friends in the dorm. The second method was his preferred means of entrance. The creeper would hang around the door during the day while card checks weren't needed and wait for someone with a card to let themselves in. Then he would slip in behind them, pretending to be a student who lost his card. Once in the building, he would lurk in the stairwells, briefly moving to the lounges when he had to, waiting for the prime shower times. I learned that he used the stairwells and a ridiculous sense of awareness to disappear. Whenever his actions raised the slightest suspicion, he would slink to the stairwell before anyone could confront him. With my intelligence gathered and my network established, it was time to be more proactive. I organized and scheduled coordinated sweeps of the 2 stairwells during peak shower hours, with the team on the stairwell next to the bathrooms clearing each shower area as they descended the floors. People took shifts for different days to schedule around morning classes. It was all just a waiting game now. One morning, as I'm waking up, I get a text from a girl in my surveillance network. She says that while leaving for class, she saw someone matching the creeper's description lurking outside the door and slipping in behind a student, his second method too. I thank her for the info and decide to take a pair of gym shorts with me to shower a few minutes later. Near the end of my shower, I turn right to just barely catch a man-sized shadow dash away from the curtain. He'd previously done tests with my hand outside the curtain to see how close someone had to be to cast a shadow on it. You had to be practically touching it to leave any kind of shadow. Needless to say, I was enraged. I rip open the curtain and jump into my gym shorts, rush to the door, and fling it open so fast and hard it swings past the hydraulic stopper and puts a crack in the wall. I'm out of the bathroom in seconds, and Sparta kicked the push bar of the stairwell door that's immediately next to all the male bathrooms and see no one. I know how hot on his trail I am, and know he couldn't be in that stairwell without me seeing or hearing him right then. So I turn to the elevator area, the intersection of the floor's 2 hallways and lounge, and see 2 girls waiting to go down. One squeaks, "There," and points left, to the lounge. I had the bastard cornered. I'm a fairly big guy who was just out of high school sports, and I still had a football/wrestler's build. So now I walk, soaking wet and freeballing in gym shorts, with every muscle tense and murder in my eyes. I swing the double lounge doors open, and there he is, still pretending to look at his phone. Right off the bat, I position myself so that he can't get past me and begin interrogating him. The creeper doesn't run or fight. Instead, he plays innocent, saying he's transferring to my university next semester and knows a friend on another floor. One of my greatest strong points is that in the heat of the moment, I can still think rationally. The creeper was guilty as sin, and trust me, I wanted blood. But I wasn't about to be the white male assault's average description blackmail headline for the morning news, especially since all I saw was his shadow and had never seen his face before. So right away, I take a much less aggressive stance. In a polite, even friendly tone, I calmly explain to him that we've had some trouble with a serial peeper, and unfortunately, he fits the description. Next, I suggest that if he's innocent, then it should be no problem to clear his name with DPS, and instruct him to come with me. So I escort him down the hall, looking to find someone who can positively identify the creeper. Victim 1 is the first to open his door for me, who right away confirms the ID and goes to call DPS while I escort the creeper to the elevator area to wait for their arrival. While walking to the elevator, I let him call his friend to come up and explain things. While waiting for the friend to come up, 2 friends of mine from lower floors burst out of the stairwell door. One was a jacked black kid from NYC, the other an Israeli international student and a veteran of the Israeli Armed Forces. Both of them get right up in the creeper's face, asking me if this is the guy. Word spread through my network and into others like wildfire. Right then, I could have let them tear this kid apart. The Israeli actually looked like he was going to kill them, but instead, I called them off, saving the sicko. My mind was set on bringing him to justice. Soon his friend arrives, just before DPS calls to say they're in the lobby. The creeper goes over and greets him as if he's his best friend, with a random Latino dude just looking confused as heck. When the creeper then tries to play the race card, I reply, "It's not like that," as the elevator door opens. The ride down in the elevator was easily the most nerve-wracking part, as I didn't know if the guy was armed at all, but couldn't risk losing him going down the stairs. But we make it downstairs, and half the DPS force is at the lobby to greet us. Justice had been done. During my second semester of college, I met a very interesting individual. Even thinking about him now gives me chills. At first, he came off as an all-around good guy. He was an RA, or resident advisor, in my dorm, an assistant coach for the basketball team. He used to play, but got injured, and always seemed to be helping out or leading some sort of academic team or group around school. Being a freshman, and never having encountered someone like this, I spent some time with the guy and tried to get to know him a little better. Everything seemed clear. The guy seemed clean as a whistle, didn't even drink. Fast forward a month to a random day when my roommate and this guy got into an argument over their own personal tendencies and why they don't like each other. Thought it was a pretty adult thing to do. So after this incident, there were a few small fires happening on the floor above me in small windowless study rooms. These occurrences were in the middle of the night, causing everyone to have to get up at around 3 a.m. and stand outside for an hour or so. Well, around the third time this happened, drunk me wasn't having it that night, and long story short, I mouthed off to a different RA and then to a cop, which got me and my roommate put into interrogation rooms because a citizen can't be grumpy. After this night, I thought it was over, but the pathetic and Neanderthal-minded campus cops decided to get a warrant and come take everything electronic in our dorm, promising to return said items in a week. They were returned 2 months later, an entire semester with no laptop and no apology for completely harassing me and my roommate. I finally came to find that this individual, who this story unfolds around, had told the cops that my roommate and I were suspects and should be investigated as the primary suspects. These half-assed, dim-witted, badge-wearing, insignificant specks of life supposed that I was lighting fires one story above. Apparently, it was the RA who was lighting the fires with something along the lines of a hero complex. His MO would be to act as the first responder and be the one to put the fires out to potentially look less guilty. But they eventually caught him with a peephole cam in an empty room on the hall and pressed charges of arson against him. I decided that moving into a dorm with a friend's younger brother would be a good idea. This decision really came back to bite me in the ass. Starting from the first week, things started to go south. Let me digress for a second. I am in college to become a network engineer. I have been fascinated by computers for as long as I can remember, and I have had a desktop computer that I have been upgrading and switching out components on since I was about 12 years old. It was basically my child. Back to the original story, this new roommate of mine was in the band, so he moved in a week early. When I started moving my stuff in, I realized that he had taken the bed by the window, then positioned all of the stuff he brought to take up literally 3/4 of the room. I had desk space, the space directly around my bed, and the spot around the door. Kind of shitty, but it was whatever. I was ready to get away from home, and this was still exciting because it was new. It took 3 days until he spilled ginger ale over my electronic, then didn't say anything or make an effort to clean it up until I got back to the dorm. I started typing and realized that my keys were sticky and asked him if he knew anything about it, and he said, "Yeah. I dropped a case of ginger ale and it exploded all over everything." I cleaned up my side. I was furious, but I'm pretty level-headed, and just told him to go grab me a cup of water so that I could at least try to get the gunk off of my keyboard. Fast forward a month, and my roommate has fried his computer. I have dealt with pretty consistent bullshit, but nothing serious. My roommate had been complaining about computer issues, and being the good Samaritan that I am, I told him that I would take a look at it. After getting rid of all the rogue add-ons on his browsers and running a few antivirus and anti-malware scans, I got it running back to its normal state. I decided that it would be a good idea to check his search history to see what might have caused all the viruses. I realized that every time I went to class he would look up depraved by Googling it. Naturally, told his brother, and we had a good laugh about it. Hell, the fact that he Googled it was funnier than the shit he was looking up. Eventually, his computer completely broke. That led to him getting on my computer whenever I was away. I left my password off of my computer because I didn't have anything to hide, and I wasn't really worried about intruders. That was until I started noticing weird related searches popping up on my Google search bar. I checked my history and realized that he had been searching stuff on my computer. I was pissed. To make another long story short, I ended up getting kicked out of the dorm for smoking pot. He and I both smoked, but not at all on a regular basis at the time. I had smoked before college, but not frequently. After he and I smoked, I had 3 fans blowing out the window, towel under the door, and a metal pipe with a lid. He left to go to the studio. About an hour and a half later, I hear 3 loud knocks at the door, and I open it assuming it's just my RA or something. It wasn't. I got kicked out, but I covered for my roommate because I know how his parents are and they would have exiled him. Not exaggerating, they are hardcore conservative Christians who still refuse to talk to me because I smoked pot with their son living with me. Later, I found out that we got caught because he came out of our room and went directly to brag about smoking with his roommate to his friends in the studio.